Okay, this video is going to take you through the computer or the customer order program, and just to go through it kind of quickly to make sure that you see what should be involved. So you'll be able to just look at it here, and you can pause the video if you need to, or maybe you won't need to. So what we have here is we have the string is used because the customer name is going to be a group of characters or words or letters is probably the simpler way to say this. So if the variable is going to store words, then it's going to be a string data type. And then num of lattes, you're going to order 1, 2, 3. They're going to be whole numbers, so we use an int. The cost of a latte is typically going to be a double because it's dealing with money, and so anytime that you're going to deal with money, the general rule is to use the double data type. There may be exceptions to that, but the general rule is to use the double data type because that handles decimals, and so total cost is of course a double. The assignments, the declarations reserve a memory location and give it some kind of a name. For instance, so all these are kind of large, but let's say num of lattes, and I'm not going to finish it because it'll take too long. And so then when it comes down here to assignments, now all it is doing is storing the value in that variable, like what we did with the starbursts and the cups in our demonstration of variables. And so customer name stores a string, so you got to make sure that you have the quotation marks. All right, and then num of lattes is a number. Actually, we were supposed to do 3. I did this for something else. So the 3 gets stored in here, and then the cost of latte 3.15. And then the directions said to assign a calculation to one of the variables, which the logical one would be the total cost. So in order to come up with the total cost, you have to calculate the number of lattes times the cost for each latte. And so therefore we don't use 3 times 3.15. We use the variable calls. So these are variable calls. So we need variable names here. If we're multiplying, if the data that we're multiplying or is a value in a variable, then don't write the values, write the variable names, which is the variable calls. So those two, remember, this is a return value would be 3, and this return value would be 3.15. Then it would multiply those two numbers together and come up with the total. And then you've got the print statement, and so on that we want to see the system. So we have it says Molly ordered 3 lattes, and so Molly comes from a variable, and so therefore you use the variable call. Don't type Molly in there. And then ordered is the string, and then another variable call 3, so we don't type 3, and then the lattes ordered for a total cost of, and then you put the $sign in, and then and so the compiler will print that, and then total cost is the final variable call that will then, the return value will be $9.45, so that will print instead of total cost. Alright, so whenever there's no quotation marks, the compiler is going to think, well, this is a decimal. It'll go to that, for instance, this one, it'll go to that variable in the computer memory, to the storage location that has the name num of lattes. It'll return the 3 back, and then it'll put a 3 above. It'll put a 3 here, and it'll actually print 3. Alright, so just 2 more things here, and that is how to deal with long print statements. So if you have to use the horizontal scroll bar to see the whole print statement, you need to fix it. So one of the things, of course, you could make this wider here, but let's say that doesn't cut it. And so what you do, there's 2 ways to deal with this. The first way is that you go to let's say after a concatenation operator, let's say, and press enter in front of either the variable call or the quotation mark, and then you can tab it over. And then what I like to do is I like to line it up with the first letter of the argument of the println method, and so I put that right underneath that, and there you go. And so now you can see it without using the scroll bar, and it's an easy way to do it. Okay, there is another way to do it. So if you need to make a note on this, you can pause the video or whatever, but I'm going to go to the other way to deal with this, and that would be here. And so another thing you can do is you can separate the long print statement into 3 print statements, in which the first, let's say in this case she did, this particular student did it in 3. You could actually fairly easily do it in 2. I think I'm just going to change that. So num of lattes, and there we go. And then the second print statement, I'm going to put an ln. I usually like to finish with an ln. Total cost of that is going to be this. Alright, and then we can delete it. So in this one I would just put 2. You don't want to do more than you need to, because then it gets more complicated. But anyway, so you have print Molly ordered 3, and then it'll go in here, and oops, we don't want to do that. You don't want to start with a concatenation operator or end with one, and that's what some students do. Alright, so that because this has a print method at the beginning, it will put the second argument here on the same line, and it'll make it all one line. But in the code, you make it so you don't have to scroll over to see the entire print statement. So this is another way to do that.